Imagine a gorgeous 80-degree spring day in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah. Perfect weather.
Right. The sky is perfectly clear. For you, deciding where to eat, it is absolute perfection. You're probably thinking about outdoor seating and like a cold drink.
Which sounds amazing.
It does. But for a restaurant manager who's looking at that exact same blue sky, it's a statistical trap. It literally carries a 25% chance of completely destroying their weekend profit margin.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is the complete shift in perspective. We're taking the weather, which we normally view as this passive, everyday, atmospheric background noise.
Just something that happens to us.
Right, exactly. And we're turning it into an active, aggressive, operational variable. And more importantly, the data we are looking at attaches direct financial probabilities to that variable. It's a highly strategic, predictive model of risk.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Well,
Welcome to today's custom-tailored deep dive. We are looking at a highly specialized document today, which is the Restaurant Operations 3-Week National Weather Outlook.
and this covers the period from May 4th to late May of 2026.
Yes, exactly. And this isn't your local news meteorologist just, guessing if it'll be sunny on Sunday. This is hard data synthesized from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, alongside the Storm Prediction Center.
Right, and also GWT2Energy.
Yeah, which is a specialized frame that helps commercial restaurants forecast and manage their energy usage. So our mission today is to uncover how extreme weather patterns over the next 21 days will dictate how restaurants operate, how they manage their soaring utility bills, and ultimately how they serve you, the customer.
Because for a restaurant manager, this 3-week outlook is essentially a general's battlefield map.
It really is. It's about predicting if the HVAC system is going to completely melt down during a Friday night dinner rush, or if a sudden severe storm is going to wipe out an entire weekend of patio revenue.
To understand the utility of a predictive model like this, you really have to look at the immediate front lines.
Yeah.
The first week of May is characterized by extreme meteorological contradictions.
Contradictions.
Well, the transition from early to mid-spring is historically chaotic anyway, right? And this data proves it by highlighting how highly localized and volatile the atmosphere actually is right now.
Yeah, looking at the sources, they outline a marginal to slight risk of severe thunderstorms and tornadoes across parts of the Midwest and the Plains.
Right, we're talking Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma.
Exactly, specifically between May 4th and May 6th, and the data puts a firm number on it, which I found crazy. There is a 20 to 30% likelihood of notable tornado impacts in those affected cities just this week.
But then, and this is where the contradiction comes in, if you shift your focus to the South, the Ohio Valley, and the Mid-Atlantic, it is a totally different planet.
It's like a different season altogether. We are seeing extreme temperature anomalies of 10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit above average. Places like Atlanta and Louisville could see record highs in the 80s.
While it stays unusually cool up in the northern plains and the Great Lakes.
Right. So that geographic split creates severe operational paradoxes. You have these acute, violent weather risks in the middle of the country, and then sudden, extreme heat anomalies in the south and east.
Yeah.
But I want to push back a little on the real-world impact of that heat anomaly, because to a consumer, an 80-degree day in early May sounds fantastic.
Drives huge foot traffic. Everyone wants to sit on the patio.
Exactly. But the sources frame this beautiful weather as an immediate operational hazard that spikes cooling demands. How is a beautiful spring day harder on a restaurant's air conditioning than the middle of August?
That's a great question. It really comes down to the mechanical physics of commercial cooling systems.
Yeah.
You might assume that a sustained, brutal summer heat wave in July is the absolute hardest thing on a restaurant's infrastructure.
Right, because it's so hot for so long.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But sudden temperature swings, like going from a cold 50-degree spring night to a record-breaking 85-degree afternoon, those are actually much more damaging to older commercial HVAC systems than sustained heat.
Okay, so it's like driving a car.
How do you mean?
Like, cruising on the highway at 80 miles an hour for 5 hours is totally fine for the engine. It's built for that.
Right.
But stop-and-go traffic, slamming on the gas and then the brakes every 10 feet is what destroys your transmission. So spring weather is essentially stop-and-go traffic for a commercial air conditioner.
That is a perfect analogy. The technical terms they use are rapid thermal expansion, contraction, and aggressive short cycling.
Short cycling.
Yeah. In a sustained summer heat wave, the system turns on, it runs continuously at a high capacity, and it just maintains a steady state. But during these massive spring anomalies, the system is constantly slamming on and off, trying to adapt to wild external fluctuation.
Oh, wow.
So the compressor takes a beating, the belts and motors experience acute mechanical stress, and the source data specifically notes that there is currently a 15 to 25% likelihood of extreme heat impacting HVAC systems in these southern hotspots right now.
That's a huge number.
It is. They're putting a very specific percentage on the risk of your cooling equipment outright failing or functioning so inefficiently that it just bleeds money.
That is a terrifying metric for a business owner operating on, razor-thin margins.
Mm.
A 25% chance that your most expensive piece of equipment taps out just because the weather got too nice too fast.
Yeah, and meanwhile, operators in the Midwest are bracing for a 30% chance of tornadoes or severe storms taking down the local power grid.
Which is a whole different nightmare, because if the grid drops, all the food in the walk-in freezers goes bad within hours. So week one is just pure triage.
It is entirely about surviving the sudden shock to the system, whether that shock is wind, hail, or an unseasonable heat spike.
You look at these immediate weather shocks, and here's where it gets really interesting to me. The data tracks how that localized chaos mutates into a nationwide systemic strain by mid-May.
Right, the transition.
Yeah. We move from surviving sudden outages to enduring a grueling, compounding financial drain. Let's look at the 14-day outlook, stretching from May 11th to the 17th.
Okay.
The elevated thunderstorms start shifting across the southern and central plains and the Midwest. The likelihood of tornado and severe warnings affecting operations jumps up to between 25 and 40%.
The mechanism behind that shift is crucial. As we move deeper into May, the jet stream, which is the river of high-altitude air that steers storm systems,
Right.
it begins to shift northward, and it interacts with increasingly warm, moist air pumping up from the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and that collision is what causes the storm risk to both expand geographically and intensify in probability.
And the temperatures follow a similar compounding trajectory, don't they?
They do.
In that same 14-day window, temperatures push 15 degrees or more above average in the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic.
And you've got isolated heat risks in the southwest, but then cooler pockets in West Texas.
Right. And because of that sustained heat, the HVAC impact likelihood we just talked about, that jumps from 25% up to between 30 and 45%.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the data is really illustrating the variable spring to summer transition. And this culminates in the 21-day outlook.
Right, the late May forecast.
Exactly. May remains the peak tornado month, historically, and in this specific model. But the most significant operational threat actually comes from a meteorological phenomenon the sources identify as ridging.
Ridging, yes, I know that term. The data says ridging favors above normal temperatures in the east, the Pacific Northwest, and the Gulf. And that pushes the likelihood of extreme temperatures affecting HVAC efficiency to 40% or higher in southern and eastern states.
Yeah, 40% is a massive jump.
It is. So how exactly does ridging create that kind of nationwide strain?
So ridging refers to an elongated area of high atmospheric pressure. Mechanically, high pressure causes air to sink, and as that air sinks, it compresses and warms up. It acts like an invisible atmospheric dome, trapping heat near the surface and actively deflecting cooler air masses or precipitation from moving into the area.
Oh, wow. So that isolated, beautiful patio weather from week one has now basically become a stagnant, baking heat dome by week 3?
Exactly.
Well, with probabilities hitting 40% or more for HVAC strain by late May due to this heat dome, I want to challenge the business logic here for a second.
Sure.
The outlook essentially grabs restaurant operators by the shoulders and tells them they must pre-spend money on maintenance right now.
Right.
Isn't this just a specialized entry firm pushing restaurants to spend money on services they might not actually need? I mean, a 40% chance of strain still means there's a 60% chance they'll be totally fine.
It does look like an upsell, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Until you examine the economics of restaurant survival.
Okay, tell me more.
The source provides a very specific operational directive, which is to stay proactive with energy-efficient HVAC maintenance now. Think about the actual logistics of a breakdown.
Like if a unit fails.
Yeah. If a compressor blows on a Friday evening in late May when the dining room is packed, the restaurant doesn't just lose the cost of the emergency repair, which, by the way, is at a premium weekend rate.
Oh, true.
They lose the entire weekend's revenue. Guests will not sit in an 85-degree dining room. They just won't. They will leave. and then they will leave bad reviews online that impact future traffic.
That's a great point.
Plus, without adequate cooling, kitchen staff face genuinely unsafe working conditions. And prep food in the back spoils faster.
So the cost of inaction is exponentially higher than the cost of just doing a preventative chemical coil wash in early May.
Precisely. Pre-spending on a maintenance contract is basically buying an insurance policy against the atmosphere.
That makes total sense. Pre-spending in week 1 is the only mathematical way to insulate the business from the catastrophic revenue loss predicted by week 3.
Because as that 40% probability hits, heat-related staff and guest comfort will literally dictate whether a restaurant stays in the black for the month.
Knowing when the weather mutates from a localized storm to a high-pressure heat dome is really only half the equation, though.
Right. The other half is knowing where.
Exactly. Knowing exactly where the biggest risks lie so multi-location franchises can target their contingency planning. Let's map out the specific danger zones outlined in the sources.
Geographic specificity allows a chain operator to deploy resources effectively, rather than just blindly spending on maintenance everywhere.
Right. So for tornado and severe storm risks, the cities on high alert are Oklahoma City, Dallas, St. Louis, and Chicago.
And for extreme heat and HVAC strain, the high alert areas are entire states: Texas, Florida, Georgia, the Mid-Atlantic region, and specifically Phoenix, which is staring down potential record-breaking heat.
Yeah, Phoenix is going to be brutal. But the sources also zoom out to factor in the broader seasonal context, specifically hurricane season, which officially begins June 1st.
Yes. The 2026 outlook is projecting a below-average hurricane season, roughly 11 to 16 named storms total.
Okay.
However, they still assign a 32% probability for a major U.S. landfall for the full season.
Which is such an interesting metric to include in a May report. Like, why does a restaurant manager in Chicago or Denver need to care about a 32% chance of a hurricane hitting the Gulf Coast weeks from now?
Because of the supply chain.
Ah, right.
A major storm hitting the Gulf doesn't just flood coastal restaurants. It disrupts oil refineries, which spikes diesel fuel costs. And that instantly increases the delivery fees for every single food truck driving to Chicago.
That makes so much sense.
It also disrupts agricultural hubs. A single hurricane could wipe out a tomato crop or disrupt Gulf seafood distribution. And that forces a restaurant 1,000 miles away to rewrite their menu pricing to absorb the shock.
Wow. Everything really is connected. Returning to our immediate 3-week window, the 21-day outlook shows a 35 to 50% cumulative likelihood of disruptive weather events across the board.
That's a huge chunk of probability.
It is. So what does this all actually mean? Because I have to zero in on the disclaimers at the bottom of this report.
Of the legal text.
Yeah. The providers explicitly state that this forecast is probabilistic guidance, that weather is inherently uncertain, and that actual conditions may vary.
Naturally.
Furthermore, GWT2Energy explicitly states they are not liable for any decisions, losses, or damages resulting from the use of this information.
Right.
So if you're a restaurant owner, how do you actually justify planning your entire operational budget around a 35 to 50% likelihood of a disruptive event when the data providers themselves are waving a flag saying, hey, this is uncertain and we aren't legally responsible if we're wrong?
This raises an important question about the fundamental philosophy of predictive analytics in business. It's incredibly tempting to read a legal disclaimer, see that the data isn't a 100% guarantee, and just dismiss it.
Yeah, just toss it out.
But that is a profound misunderstanding how risk management works. You do not use probabilistic guidance to make binary all-or-nothing decisions.
So you don't board up the windows and cancel all your staff shifts just because there's a 30% chance of a storm.
Exactly. You don't close your doors in Dallas on a 35% chance of a tornado warning.
Yeah.
What you do is utilize the data to mitigate the cost of the worst-case scenarios without crippling your daily operations.
Okay.
We call these micro-adjustments.
Micro-adjustments.
Yeah. If there's a 35% chance of severe wind in Dallas, you institute a manager policy that all patio furniture, umbrellas, and signage must be secured and chained down at the end of every single shift.
Oh, I see.
It costs you nothing but 10 minutes of labor, but it saves you thousands of dollars in property damage and liability if the storm actually hits overnight.
Let's apply that to food logistics because the inventory piece seems massive here.
It is.
If you are managing a restaurant in St. Louis and you see that 30% chance of severe storms knocking out the power grid, how does that change your walk-in freezer?
Well, you alter your purchasing behavior immediately. You don't rent temporary refrigeration trucks yet, but you significantly reduce your order of highly perishable, high-cost items.
Like fresh seafood or premium steaks.
Exactly. Instead, you pivot your specials for the week to utilize frozen or more shelf-stable inventory. You pay a local technician a small fee to test your existing backup generators to ensure they turn over the second the grid drops.
Right.
In Phoenix, you don't install a brand new HVAC system, but you pay for that premium chemical wash of the existing condenser coils so they operate at peak efficiency when the heat dome sets in.
It's really about leveraging the uncertainty to your advantage. The data providers aren't liable because they can't control the atmosphere, but the restaurant manager is liable to their shareholders, their staff, and their customers to ensure the business survives the statistical probability of that atmosphere.
Yes, it's risk mitigation as a daily operational practice. You use the probabilistic guidance to buy targeted insurance in the form of maintenance, preparation, and intelligent inventory management.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today. We started by examining the localized, immediate threats of week one, the volatile tornado risks in the plains, and those sudden, sneaky heat spikes in the south that act like stop-and-go traffic on older cooling equipment.
Right.
And from there, we tracked how the shifting jet stream mutates those acute shocks into the chronic systemic strain of a nationwide heat dome by late May, carrying a 40% or higher probability of massive operational disruption.
The data paints an incredibly vivid picture of an industry constantly bracing for impact, utilizing highly advanced meteorological modeling just to maintain the illusion of a seamless dining experience.
Which completely changes how you should view your next night out. Over the next few weeks, when you walk into a restaurant, I want you to look around.
Yeah, take it in.
If you are sitting on a patio in Atlanta, and the temperature is perfectly mitigated by strategically placed fans and shade sails, or if you walk into a crowded dining room in Phoenix and you are hit with this glorious blast of perfectly chilled, conditioned air, realize that it isn't an accident.
No, that ambient comfort is the direct result of intense strategic contingency planning.
That perfect cold air is the result of a manager staring at a 21-day predictive model and spending money 3 weeks ago to ensure your comfort today. But building on everything we've uncovered from these sources regarding weather-driven energy costs, equipment strain, and supply chain logistics, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over.
I'm intrigued. Where are we taking this?
If commercial hospitality is already utilizing this level of highly specialized, predictive 21-day meteorological modeling just to survive the financial strain of spring weather transitions, how long is it until we start seeing weather surge pricing implemented directly on restaurant menus?
Oh, wow. Dynamic pricing directly tied to the atmospheric forecast.
Think about it. Imagine a sudden 20-degree heat spike hitting the south. The restaurant's predictive model automatically knows this increases their cooling costs and bumps their chance of an HVAC failure to 40%.
Right.
What if, automatically, the price of a cold cocktail or a chilled salad goes up by $1 or $2 to directly offset that specific meteorological risk? Or what if prime patio seating comes with an automated surge fee during optimal 70-degree spring days just to subsidize the inevitable rainouts and empty tables they know are coming later in the week?
It is the logical, albeit aggressive, evolution of utilizing a battlefield map.
The restaurant is already fighting the meteorological war. They might just start asking the customer to help fund the front lines. Definitely something to think about the next time you casually check your weather app before making a Friday night dinner reservation.